You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. Only shooting stars break the mold.
All right, welcome to another episode of 91 Reasons, one of the only things worth listening to in the internet. I don't know if that's true. I wanted to do a big opening like Kevin Smith does on Comic Book. We listen to Comic Book Men, the only show stronger than the Things Wang or whatever he does, because I watched that show, not lately, but I used to watch it. I guess I should just catch up on it. But you ever notice if you watch Comic Book Men, they do that weird thing where they go to commercial, and then in the middle of the commercial, they have like a little snippet of the show that lasts like 25 or 30 seconds. So you stop the DVR because you think the show's back on, but it turns out it's just a little bumper in between commercials. Now, I know they're all getting savvy, like finding ways to make us stop the DVR and stop fast forwarding through commercials. Some of them are very clever, like Reese's just puts a long commercial of the Reese's candy bar with words on it. And I assume there's a voiceover, but because when you're fast forwarding, all you see is the Reese's for like, I'm sure the commercial lasts 10 seconds, but on the DVR you see a Reese's for like 3 seconds or however fast you're going. So they are getting savvy. The other thing they do, if you've noticed, is commercials are completely ludicrous now. They're trying to do every kind of bizarre alien or horror or abstract imagery to get you to stop, so that hey, look at me, you have to stop fast forwarding so you can watch. And I'll admit I get suckered, if there's something that catches your eye. Like there's one it's some women's product. It's either women's themed booze or something, but it's this group of girls and they go through all these different like alien time periods. Like I can't even describe what it is, but next time I see it, I will jot it down so I can remember. I think I saw it during The Soup. Like I watched a lot of The Soup. The Soup is like perfect for guys like me because they take all of the random pop culture out there that I don't have time to watch and they distill it down to just the stupid moments that are worth watching. So Joel McHale's a funny guy. The show is pretty well written, and I enjoy it a lot. So if you want to know what I'm all about, watch The Soup. That's one of the only shows I really try to catch religiously. There's a lot of commercials during it, but the show itself is very funny. And not so funny when they're live. I'm not sure why they keep doing this Soup live thing. Not to go off on a tangent, but like they're very into like we're live. Well, doesn't matter to me. I'm watching it 3 days after the fact on the DVR. So, half the crew could have been killed in a bus accident, and it wouldn't make any difference to me. So I don't know why the live moniker is so. Are they? Maybe they're trying to be like edgy, like we're hanging ourselves out over the ledge here because we're live and anything could happen. Okay, what's going to happen? Joel's going to screw up on one of his transitions. Who cares? Interesting way they do things, but anywho, thanks for everybody for downloading. The numbers have been incredibly strong the last couple of weeks. That's a huge part. A huge part of that is simply the 2 Homestuck episodes that I've done with my children, my uber fan sons, who know everything about Homestuck and are schooling me. The numbers for those episodes they're staggering when you compare to the other episodes. I know that I'm moderately popular, but Homestuck as a topic is insanely popular, and people are listening from around the world. So if you've stumbled across this episode because you started listening to the Homestuck episodes, you're going to try some of the others, we thank you for joining us, for joining the 91 Reasons revolution, the movement, which is basically non-movement because it's just me sitting here talking. So we're not taking to the streets. We're not rioting. We're simply dissecting pop culture in ways that will either entertain you, infuriate you, or combinations of both. And thanks again to anyone who's been on the Patreon page and has pledged money. I'm going to get to the larger pledges that we had. We had 2 people pledge enough money so that they get to pick a movie for me to watch. One guy gave me a whole list, so I'm going to pick one of those and watch it either tonight or tomorrow and then get that episode as soon as I can. And the other guy is still circling a few movies, and he will pick one soon, and we'll have another episode that's catered to one person's movie taste, but will appeal to everybody because it'll be my crazy opinion of it. And speaking of crazy opinions, the disclaimer should go right up front here where disclaimers go, in that this episode is probably going to upset a lot of people. I was talking to a guy at work the other day about my movie taste, and he just could not believe that I hated this group of movies so much, and how I could paint an entire company with a single brush, but you don't get to, your tastes are your tastes, so I don't apologize for them. But I do put a warning up front that if you're a fan of this company and you like these movies, you're going to get your feelings hurt, because I am not. I am not a fan of Dreamworks. I have tried again and again. As a guy with kids, growing up, my kids grew up late 90s. Luke was born 97, and Austin was born 2000, Josie 2005. I have run the whole gamut of the Dreamworks film log, and I have sampled here and there as much as I can stomach, and I've never been surprised or impressed. I'm always validated in my opinion. So sorry, Dreamworks. If you're a Dreamworks fan or if you're a Dreamworks employee, I'm sorry. This is just one man's opinion on his own crazy little tiny podcast that broadcasts on a little teeny tiny patch of pop culture. So sometimes it's good to hear a dissenting opinion, because it will help you forge your own opinion and maybe, find more intricate ways of thinking. One guy who was listening was surprised at how much I disliked Mallrats, but it caused him to look at the movie in a different way. So maybe if you're a big fan of these movies, this episode will help you watch them again and go, maybe I can see it with a different eye, because I know a lot of people just blindly follow companies. I'm guilty of that. For years, I blindly followed Pixar, because I thought Pixar can do no wrong. And then when I get to my Pixar episode and do all of their movies in a row, we'll talk about what worked and what didn't, and what's brilliant out of Pixar and what's maybe not so brilliant. But today we're talking about Dreamworks. But to talk about Dreamworks animation, you have to go to the beginning. And the beginning is, strangely enough, The Lion King. Yes, Walt Disney's massive hit out of 1994. The summer of 94, man, what a good year for movies. I think I've talked about it before. There was a time in 94 you could go to the movies, and if you hit the timing right, you could see The Lion King, Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, and The Shawshank Redemption all on the same week. Like that's a pretty good lineup. If you played those all in one night at your house, it'd be a good lineup of movies, Of course, it would take 15 hours, but it would be a good 15 hours. Save Shawshank for the end, because it's worth hanging on to the end, right? But if you look at Lion King was a massive hit. And the guy who really massaged that movie and got it to the box office was Jeffrey Katzenberg. He was the head of Disney Animation. He worked side by side with Michael Eisner. And he was a little upset because when the head of Disney, before Eisner died, Wells, when Wells died, I think he died some sort of a helicopter or a skiing accident. I read this book, Disney War, but it was a few years ago, so you'll excuse me if I don't get all of the facts completely straight. But I know the gist of it, and we'll boil it down just so that we have the important parts. But Wells died, and Katzenberg thought that he was going to have a bigger piece of the pie, but Eisner took the whole thing. And the cap to the Eisner-Katzenberg duo was, I think Katzenberg was expecting a major bonus out of Lion King. And I think in his contract, he was due huge revenues from those movies because they made a lot of money. Huge amounts, stupid amounts of money. And when he wasn't given what he thought he was owed, Katzenberg was like, look, I'm out, and you're going to end up paying me all that money. And he sued them after he left. For years, the lawsuit went on. And in the end, he was awarded a huge amount of money. And Disney could have just saved all the effort and paid him that money up front. And not only would they have kept Katzenberg, who knew a lot about animation, how to make good movies, but they could have saved that money, kept him, and then had all the subsequent Disney movies would have had the Katzenberg oversee on them, which was invaluable. I mean, this is the guy that took the Dark Crystal, not the Dark Crystal, I'm sorry. I was thinking of Reaction Figures, which just announced Dark Crystal. But this is the guy who took the Black Cauldron, which Roy Disney had been making for years at the studio. And Eisner was like, this movie has to get released. And Katzenberg took all the footage, assembled it in a way that the movie kind of made sense, and finally got it to theaters. And then oversaw Great Mouse Detective, Oliver and Company, and then finally the return to Disney Animation, The Little Mermaid, which really brought the company back on the animation front in a massive way. And then followed that up with, like, what a run. Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and then, of course, Lion King, which broke every major record for animation and just set the company skyrocketing. But Eisner chose to play some sort of game with him. And I've read a lot about Eisner. I never met the guy, but he just seemed like a guy yes, he got results, but at what cost? And he seemed to be a megalomaniac, like he had to be. He wanted to be the new Walt Disney. There was no denying that. When he opened the new World of Disney show on ABC with like, hi, I'm Michael Eisner. It's like, look, you are not Uncle Walt. Get off the screen. Just go behind. He wouldn't be behind the scenes. There's a funny anecdote where they were putting together, I think it was Euro Disney, which became Disneyland Paris. And Eisner walked up to a model of one of the lands. I think it was Fantasyland. He picked a model of a building up. He turned it around, he put it back down, and he said, I want the building facing that way. And one of the designers was like, that's going to cost $2 million for what you just did. And Eisner was like, I don't care. I want it done. So that was the kind of the way he did business, was he just barreled through. And his barreling through cost him his relationship with Katzenberg. And Katzenberg left to form Dreamworks Studios with David Geffen and Steven Spielberg. And they were going to challenge everybody by having a studio that harkened back to like United Artists, where the people who were the creative ones were going to be the ones making the movies and not the people counting the beans in the finance department. And that was very exciting. As a movie fan, that was very exciting to me because it meant a whole new wave of movie products. And good or bad, I love going to the movies. So anytime a studio wants to pony up and say, hey, we're a new studio, and we're going to make new movies, I'm all about it. Their first big movie out of the gate was Peacemaker with George Clooney, a movie nobody even remembers, but it's famous because it was the first DreamWorks movie. But the other big arm, like they were going to make a lot of live action movies. But one of their big things was Katzenberg was going to challenge Disney by starting his own boutique animation studio, and he was going to put out product and say, look, Disney's not the only one who can make animated movies. We can all take a shot at this. And good or bad, Katzenberg making that proclamation and then following through by putting out product really spurred the creation of all the other animation studios like Blue Sky and even Aardman to some degree. Like these companies all got together and said, look, we can do this. If that guy can do it and Disney can do it, we can. If Pixar can do it, we can do it. And I think, no, I'm not 100% on this, but I think also the advent of computer animation brought the costs down because traditional cell animation was very expensive and required many more people. Because once you create all the models in the computer, the rest of it is very singular. Like guys can work on whole scenes themselves, And also, it also spurred on Disney to branch out in other ways, and that might be how we got Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach and all the resurgence of these really good stop motion animated movies that really captured imaginations. I mean, I won't go into Nightmare Before Christmas because I'm a big fan of it, and it's a story all to its own. But there's no denying that when you went in the theater and saw it, it was something completely new. It didn't look like anything else. Like in the span of 2 years, we got Nightmare Before Christmas and then Toy Story, 2 animated movies that defied logic by being completely different looking, but being so good, because when you're working with animation, that particular stop motion or early days of computer animation, the early days scenes took, frames, single frames took days to be created in the computer because there just wasn't enough memory. Rendering, the word I was looking for was rendering. But because it took so long to render scenes or in stop motion to move a scene, they started with the script first. And they didn't go to work until the script was good. God, wouldn't films be great if everybody took that to heart and said, look, we're not going to start till we've got a good script. Not a script, but a good script. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, filmed without a script. They made it up as they went along, and it shows on the screen. Con Air, I talked about that in the Homestuck episode. They didn't have a script. They just made stuff up. They had an outline. Well, here's what we're kind of going to do. Malkovich said they would show up to set on Con Air not knowing any idea what they were doing for the day. Like, that's crazy to me. Look at Return of the Jedi. I talked about that in the Star Wars episode. Lucas got to the scene where Vader has knocked Luke off the gantry in the Emperor's throne room, and Luke's hiding under the stairs, and Vader's trying to taunt him to attack him. And the script said Vader says something to taunt Luke. That's it? The big emotional crux of the movie, the reason Luke is going to finally let loose his anger and turn on Vader and go on the attack, and the screenwriter doesn't know what it is, and they had to, at the last minute, go, well, maybe he should talk about his sister. That boggles my mind. As me, I am a writer. I can't imagine starting a journey of writing and not knowing where you're going. Like, that's crazy to me. And certainly, look, I'm just one guy with a keyboard. It's not costing anybody any money for me to sit and write. But when you've got an entire crew, and Jedi's the third movie in the series. Like, everybody's like a well-oiled machine. We know what we're doing. We got the creature shop here, the model shop here. We're building the Falcon here. Oh, yeah, we don't have a script yet. That's insane. That's crazy. But there was a short window when the animation was very expensive. So they had to have a script. Nowadays, I mean, oh my God, if you look at children's TV, computer animation is so cheap. Like, the characters just stand around talking heads. Nothing happens. And you can tell they went in the studio and were like, we'll just riff on this. We'll just riff. As long as the camera's moving, kids will think it's good. I mean, look at Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. That's an animated movie, TV show for kids. And, like, it's terrible. If I was a kid today, I would demand better animated product. Like, good enough that this crap you're putting on, it isn't. Do better. Look at the trailer for the new Peanuts movie. Like, that looks completely new and different. It doesn't look like everything else, and it's time to demand that of movies. But I digress because we're supposed to be talking about Dreamworks, aren't we? But when Katzenberg left Disney, he knew, like, he'll never admit to this, and I'm just talking out of my rear end here, like Ace Ventura. So I don't know facts, so you can't sue me for spreading lies, all lies. But what I can say is, when he left Disney, he must have known what was in the pipeline, because Pixar was already working on their follow-up to Toy Story. The minute Toy Story was nearing completion, they cranked work up on the next one, because these movies took so long to put together that to get Bugs Life out in any kind of fashion, they had to start early. So it's no coincidence at all, that DreamWorks' first animated movie was about bugs. Are you kidding me, Katzenberg? It is so obvious, the ploy that they pulled when Bugs Life and Ants came out within months of each other, you know. And we're not talking like Armageddon and Deep Impact coming out within months of each other, because that was a real coincidence. We're talking about a guy who was head of animation. He knew what was in the pipeline. So when he went and jumped ship to create his own company, first thing he did was, I'm going to screw with the competition. And it wouldn't be the first time. It wouldn't be the last time, because it is the first time. But I remember taking Luke to see Ants as a kid, and look, I like going to the movies, and when the trailers for Ants showed up, it looked bizarre. Like the bugs of Bugs Life, Flick and all the gang, they're very friendly looking. The characters in Ants are grotesque. I don't know what they were thinking. They look disturbing. You know, Ants even had a toy line. Katzenberg, it stopped at nothing to imitate exactly what he had done at Disney, and that included a toy line. I don't remember if there was a Happy Meal promotion. I'm sure there was, but I know there was a toy line, because it was just weird seeing these ugly, ugly toys right next to the very pretty Bugs Life toys right on the shelf. The only thing that Katzenberg got for Ants that was interesting was he managed to get Woody Allen to voice the main character. Like, that's strange. Like, what kid wants to go see an animated Woody Allen movie? Now, I enjoyed it because I like Woody Allen. It was Woody Allen, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Christopher Walken, Sylvester Stallone. Like, you could tell Katzenberg was like, look, we're going to do some stunt casting here, and we're going to get this thing to market as fast as we can. And we'll sort of follow the story of Bugs Life, but not really. Enough that we won't get sued. Not that Disney was going to sue them, because Disney knew that distributing the Pixar film Bugs Life was going to be a home run. You know, the movie looked gorgeous. It was coming off of all the goodwill that Toy Story had. There was no doubt. And Ants was how do you describe it? Like, you know those asylum movies that come out where, like, Thor goes to theaters, so they've got a movie called Thor, and they're just designed to fool people at the video store. Ants look like one of those asylum movies. Like, it's only designed to fool people who are going to the theater and then eventually buying it on home video. And you know what, Katzenberg? That's a dick move, you know? I get that you were angry, but your first film out of the gate should have been the next one, Prince of Egypt. You should have rushed it. You should have put out this big animated epic before you put out the quickie Disney middle finger. And I've got the Wikipedia page for DreamWorks, because there are a few that I don't even remember, and you won't remember as well. But like, Ants came out October 2nd, 1998. Prince of Egypt, December 18th of the same year, 2 months later. Don't tell me that Ants wasn't a rushed into production way to screw with Disney. Now, look, he was angry. Katzenberg's a short guy like me, and we're always accused of Napoleon syndrome because we're short and we need to exert our wills in different ways. I don't subscribe to that. I've never been unhappy with my height. But, dude, we can see right through you. So if we move from Ants, and Ants is just bizarre. You should watch it just as an exercise in what the hell am I looking at. And Woody Allen's, I'm an ant, and I have to go find the princess, and Christopher Walken's going to destroy everybody if I don't do. Like, that's so. What kid wants to watch that? The stunt casting in all of DreamWorks movies are what separate them from Pixar. Pixar casts actors who will do well in the role, not based on celebrity. It really isn't. You know, yes, you could probably say that Toy Story was stunt casting because Tom Hanks was the biggest star in the world at the time, and Tim Allen was the biggest star on TV with Home Improvement. But, can you imagine anyone else doing those voices? Tom Hanks' Woody is a real person, a real character to me. Buzz Lightyear, too. The main guy in Ants, not so much. Anywho, so he followed Ants up with Prince of Egypt. Now, Prince of Egypt was a traditional cel-drawn animated movie of the story of Moses. And you know what? It's not bad, I'll be honest. Out of the entire lexicon of DreamWorks animation, I think Prince of Egypt might be, if you're talking about produced by the studio, created by the studio, and not just distributed, we'll get to that in a few films down the road here, that Prince of Egypt, it works. It's weird. Disney was never going to do a biblical movie. So this was probably a Katzenberg passion project. Like, hey, I want to do this biblical movie. That's what I want to do. And Eisner's like, no, just do talking animals. Do Hamlet, but make them lions. Okay, we'll do Hamlet. We'll make them lions. Steal from Kimba, the white lion. Okay, we got it. Okay, but Prince of Egypt's unabashedly religious, and they marketed it as such. Like, it was marketed to churches, and they had a soundtrack and a TV special, and it was designed to be an event picture that they wanted ministers and priests to take the whole congregation to see the story of Moses. And I think in some part it worked. Prince of Egypt did pretty well at the box office. You know, Ants did well too. We're talking about a time where these big budget animated movies released at theaters, almost all of them did well. There are some exceptions that we'll talk about, but like Prince of Egypt, $218 million at the box office. You know, it's not so much now. It's funny how times have changed, but back in the day, we're talking 98, $200 million was the level at which you were called a blockbuster. If you got a $200 million, your film was a massive hit. You know, Ants, $171 million. That's crazy. $171 million for a grotesque movie where Woody Allen tries to woo Julia Louis-Dreyfus. What? I got to get off of Ants. I got to move on. Prince of Egypt's not bad. The music's good. It's Val Kilmer and I think it's Ray Fiennes. Like, two pretty big actors at the time, you know. But it's a movie where, since they're doing such a grand biblical story, the script takes precedence over all the other stuff. And they were able to do stuff that rivaled, like, big budget movies because it had a big budget feel to it, right? But not so much with their next one. As much as I love Kevin Kline, and listen, Kevin Kline is one of my favorite actors of all time. I have a list here, and the movie Dave, where he pretends to be the president, is one of my favorite comedies of all time. And I'm going to do a whole episode on how much I love that movie. And Kevin Kline is just a fantastic actor in everything that he does, except this one. Now, he's fine in it. Him and Kenneth Branagh are game, and they're having as much fun as they can in the film Road to El Dorado, which was DreamWorks' third movie and first bomb. Released in 2000 at a budget of $95 million, it only grossed $76 million at the box office. But you know what? Road to El Dorado is worth checking out. It's so bad that it's good way, because it's supposed to be one of those road pictures like Bing Crosby and Bob Hope. You know, it's the road to El Dorado, or as they say in the movie, El Dorado. Two con men trying to find the lost city of gold, and they of course they find it because it's an animated movie. It's a movie, and they hook up with a very curvy drawn Salma Hayek voiced cartoon, and they have a horse that has a pretty big personality. But the thing that's weird and interesting about Road to El Dorado is, to me, it's the first gay cartoon. Like, these two guys are gay. Nothing wrong with it, but it's unusual in an animated movie. These guys are completely in love with each other. They play the lady killer and the suave, dashing hero, but they're really in love with each other. In the film, they take a bath together. Like, I'm not kidding. These guys are gay. Nothing wrong with it. They're gay, though. And maybe Katzenberg was like, look, we're gonna try this out. Now, it didn't work because El Dorado bombed big time. But, yeah, weird. It had a whole Burger King toy line, and it's a very strange movie. And it's traditional cell animation, which is, at this point, becoming a dying breed. Their next film was, they didn't create it, but they distributed it. Was Chicken Run by Aardman Studios. Chicken Run's by the guy who does Wallace and Gromit. And you know what? Chicken Run's a really good movie. Like I said, there will be some exceptions, and the exception is simply that they didn't make this movie. Katzenberg, maybe he had minimal input on it, but it really does feel different than any of their other movies, and I mean DreamWorks. It's got that handcrafted stop-motion feel to it. I really like that. It's very intricate. You can tell that everything in the film was handcrafted. And what's interesting and what sets Chicken Run apart is that the hero of the film is supposed to be Mel Gibson, and he voices Rocky the rooster, and he's the American chicken who gets captured by the people who make the chicken pot pies, and he's supposed to be the one that saves them, and he ends up abandoning all these hens. So they band together and save themselves. And you know what? That's a pretty good message for movies. Like, they could have gone just the absolute cookie cutter route and had Mel Gibson swoop in and save the day, and instead the hens save themselves. I think it's Minnie Driver. I don't have the pages up for these. I'm doing this all from memory, but it's a really well done movie, a really solid, good family movie. Chicken Run is great, and you know what? The box office reflects that. On a budget of $45 million, it grossed $224 million. Amazing, really, really solid movie, and highly recommended. It might be the best out of the entire bunch here. Okay, so we get to their next film, and this is The Game Changer. Katzenberg and company had been working on Shrek for years. They had been working on Shrek so long that the original voice of Shrek was Chris Farley, and when he passed away, they had to replace him. And they replaced him with Mike Myers. Mike Myers doing the same semi-Scottish voice that he did in So I Married an Axe Murderer and as Fat Bastard in Austin Powers. It's the same voice. And you know what? I don't like Shrek. I don't like Shrek at all. I think that it has a really bad message, but we'll get to that. I don't like Cameron Diaz, so right away, I'm a fan of Mike Myers. I think he's a very funny guy. I'm not a fan of that voice. I'm tired of it, man. Mike, get some new shtick, man. I know Chris Farley didn't do it like that. Chris Farley didn't have that voice in him. But, Mike Myers doing it. I really like Eddie Murphy. I'm a big fan of Eddie Murphy. And thank goodness, this was one of the few films of the last, 15, 16 years where Eddie Murphy's funny. Like, he wasn't trying to do mediocre comedy. Like, his movies have been so lackluster. And this is the guy who made Beverly Hills Cop and Coming to America. That's one of my favorite comedies as well, man. Coming to America is so good. Coming to America inspired parts of my own novel. That's how much I love Coming to America. Fantastic movie. But that Eddie vanished in the 90s. I would, at 96, he did Nutty Professor. And I think after that, except maybe Bowfinger, where he's a supporting actor and not a lead actor. He's fantastic in Bowfinger. But at least in Shrek, he's very entertaining. As Donkey, he's very entertaining. I will give you that. But it's the message of the movie that I don't like, because the plot of Shrek is Lord Farquaad, voiced very well by the very talented John Lithgow. Lord Farquaad is pushing all of the fairy tale creatures out of the forest so he can extend his reach. Got it. That's the whole plot. So Shrek has to leave his swamp and journey to the land of Dulocs and convince this guy not to take his land. That's the whole plot, you know? But along the way, he meets this very feisty, beautiful princess, and they form an unlikely bond, and they're going to challenge everything together. So at the end, here's the problem I have with Shrek. And I'm in the minority. I totally get that. Shrek, on a budget of $60 million, grossed $484 million. That's a massive hit. Katzenberg must have been over the moon, because this one truly rivaled Disney films for the first time. Prince of Egypt was a big hit, but nothing on the scale of Shrek. Shrek obliterated everything in its path. You know, a massive, massive hit. And Katzenberg knew it. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing so much that, are you aware, you probably are, that home videos, DVDs, Blu-rays, are released on Tuesday. They always come out on a Tuesday. Tuesday is DVD day. And why, do you ask, do they come out on Tuesday? Because that's the earliest day they can get them to stores and not have it interfere with the Friday box office gross of the new movies. They don't want to siphon off the box office of their own movies. You wouldn't release it the same day as your other movies. So you ship them out over the weekend. They arrive Monday, and that gives the retailers time to get them ready, stocked, and on the shelf first thing Tuesday morning. How do I know this? I worked at a video store, and I did a whole episode on it called VHS. That's the system. That's the system that the studios, created. They did it so they wouldn't interfere with their own business. It's a whole thing. It's a puzzle that goes together very well. Well, you can guess when Shrek was released to home video. Guess what, folks? Katzenberg released it the same day that Monsters, Inc. came out in the theaters. And if it wasn't the same day, it was very close to it. Because I can remember being in Walmart and seeing Shrek on home video and thinking, oh my God, I could take the kids to see Monsters, Inc. and pay X amount of dollars, or for much cheaper, I could just watch Shrek at home. That was very calculated. Talk about a shrewd businessman. Oh my God. He knew, like, by the time Shrek arrived on home video, it was a massive, massive hit. It had permeated every part of pop culture, because unlike the homogenized or epic, in quotes, Disney cartoons, Shrek was irreverent, and Shrek took pot shots at things. When they get to the city, they're treated to a parody of It's a Small World, where the dolls basically at the end say, "Kiss my ass." And it has current pop songs like 500 Miles by the Proclaimers and God Help Us, God Help Us. Hey Now, You're an All-Star by Smash Mouth. Quite possibly the most licensed song of all time. Hey Now, You're an All-Star was the theme song from Mystery Men in 99, Shrek in 2001, and like 2 or 3 other movies. Like, you're kidding me. How many times did they give this song to movies? And Smash Mouth, those guys from Smash Mouth are probably still counting the money from licensing that one song to as many movies and Gatorade commercials as they could. Hey, I don't begrudge him a dime. God bless him. Somebody wants to buy 91 Reasons and pay me a gazillion dollars, I'll take it. Anyways, so there's no denying Shrek was a big hit, and my opinion is the one lone guy. But listen, just hear me out quick. The message at the end of the movie is so bizarre. Lord Farquaad is just trying to move people out. Now, he does commit one bad act in the movie when he chops off the legs of the gingerbread man, and that's pretty bad. But don't you eventually see the gingerbread man with icing to keep his legs on, like he's repaired? So it's not like he killed him. But at the end of the film, Lord Farquaad is eaten by the dragon, like he is devoured alive and swallowed by the dragon to rest its belly for 1,000 years, like the Sarlacc. No, but to be killed. He's killed. He's eaten alive. One of the most awful things that can happen to any living creature is to be eaten while you're alive. And all he wanted to do was move people out. By contrast, Cruella de Vil in 101 Dalmatians, her goal in the film is to take the 101 puppies, kill them, skin them, and then wear their skins as a jacket. That is the plot of that movie. And what happens to her at the end? Her car is run into a snowdrift. That's it. That's it. So does the punishment fit the crime in Shrek if you look at that? No, it does not. It's oddly severe in that movie. And that's not even my worst problem with it. My worst problem with Shrek is that in the film, Princess Fiona finds herself falling for this big, ugly, green creature because she can see that beyond his looks, he has a good heart and he's trying to do the right thing. He starts out being selfish, doing it for himself, and in the end, he's trying to save the land for everybody. And she sees like, wow, this guy's a good guy. But, dear watcher, dear viewer, remember she's under a spell. And the spell is she has to take true love's blah, 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 true image, right? Or whatever it is. So at the end, even though Princess Fiona is unabashedly in love with Shrek, he's not allowed to have a good-looking girl. She has to be turned into a grotesque green ogre like him. Like, I don't get that. What is the message there? Hey, if you're ugly, you should just be with an ugly person. You don't get a good-looking person. That's not a good message. The message of Shrek, if you go off of that plot thread, is that you should only date people who look like you. Well, what if you want to date someone outside you, someone of a different race or ethnicity? Well, Shrek says you can't. Well, you know what? I'm not listening to Shrek. That's stupid. That's mean-spirited. Having her turn at the end, to me, was mean-spirited. And I was left in the theater with my kids, shocked. Like, I really thought they were building towards something else, some sort of better ending. But alas, it was not to be. And that's why I don't like Shrek. Because it doesn't live up to its own message of loving somebody for who they are and not what they look like. Bizarre. And Katzenberg's marketing on it was that was so weird that it came out the same day as Monsters, Inc. You know, even novices must have seen the machinations there of how ruthless that was at trying to screw the company of Disney, Pixar. You know, weird. Anywho, let's move on, shall we? Because there's more Shrek goodness in the list. The next one, Spirit, Stallion and the Cimarron. That's a animated, traditional cell animated horse movie with the voice of Matt Damon. I've never seen this movie. I don't know anybody that has other than my boss at work who loves it. She's the only person I have ever met who's seen this movie. I have no idea what this is even about other than it's a horse. So I can't speak to it other than most of you probably never even heard of it. The next two films are such weird anomalies. Again, you've probably never even heard of it. Because after Spirit, they did Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas. This was the last traditional animated cell drawing movie in the Dreamworks catalog, Sinbad. And how sad is that? Like, I've talked before how when somebody dies, when a big actor dies, it's always a bummer that their last films are never good ones. Raul Julia, huge career, and went out on Street Fighter as M. Bison. Like, how sad is that? Robin Williams, amazing film career, and his last film is going to be that ridiculous crap fest, Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb or something. Like, ugh. God dang, why can't we get Robin Williams back? Not that I want a sequel to Mrs. Doubtfire, but, the guy probably had some good movies in him still. But Sinbad is the last traditional cel-drawn movie. It was Sinbad, The Legend of Sinbad, Adventures in the Public Domain is what it really should be. And it was Brad Pitt and Catherine Zeta-Jones, big stars at the time. Brad Pitt's still a big star. I don't think Catherine Zeta-Jones worked in a long time. How weird to go from one of the most beautiful women on the planet in a dozen movies a year to, I don't think I even know what she looks like now. But, they went out and they switched over to just computer animated movies. The same thing that Disney did. Disney's last traditional movie. Now, I'm not counting Princess and the Frog because that was their big, we're back with traditional animation. We're back. Well, they're not back because it was only one. But before that, the last movie that Disney animated did, cel-drawn wise, was Home on the Range. A terrible movie about cows trying to save their ranch from the evil Randy Quaid. Like Roseanne Barr and Randy Quaid. Crazy Randy Quaid, who was convinced the government was out to get him with tinfoil hats and aliens. So, yeah, what a bummer. But anyways, their next film, of course, Shrek 2. Shrek 2, the, how do you even describe Shrek 2? I'm looking at the list here. Shrek 2 is a phenomenon. Like, there's no way to even get around it. It was budgeted at $150 million. And its return, do you have any idea what Shrek 2 made at the box office? I knew it was a lot. But to actually see the number is staggering. $919 million. Like just shy of $1 billion worldwide for Shrek 2. Freaking Shrek 2. I had heard somewhere that Cameron Diaz, Mike Myers, and Eddie Murphy made upwards of $20 to $30 million for this movie. For 2 weeks of work, of voiceover work. Now, hey, it's America. If you can get somebody to pay you, you get them to pay you. There should be no cap, no laws governing that. But oh my God, that's a lot of money for that kind of work. And in a movie that again, it baffles me why this is popular. I know that Shrek 2 was the one where they get married and Julie Andrews is in it and blah, blah, blah. It's just not my thing, folks. It's not my thing. I have no affinity for the character of Shrek. And you know what? What's interesting is that even though they would eventually do a Shrek 3, it's not like box office somehow translates to brand recognition and brand loyalty, because Buzz and Woody are revered. They're characters that when you see them, you get a warm feeling. Oh, it's Buzz and Woody. I'd watch them in anything. Shrek? Most kids don't even know who Shrek is. They did the live stage musical for a while, but without a TV show or movies to keep it alive, it just doesn't have the staying power of other characters. DreamWorks is a lot like Nickelodeon in their character turnover, where they take a character, they crank out a few movies and write it for all it's worth, and then they just move on. And I think Shrek is part of that. Part of that steamroller mentality of make it, sell it, move on. Make it, sell it, move on. And I'm okay with that because I don't care for the character, Shrek 2 had a bunch of toys from I know McFarlane got the Shrek license originally, and I was shocked. Like, this was the first time they had made cartoon-looking characters. And you know what? Regardless of the movie, the McFarlane toys looked amazing. Like, they were really amazing. And I think they ended up getting the license for Shrek 2 as well. And the toys looked pretty good. You know, McFarlane's usually dead on with their licensing stuff. And the toys were arguably more impressive than, for me, the movies. But that's actually a pretty common thing where the toys are more interesting than the movie. Not so much with Shrek 3, which we'll get to eventually, but I know that the Shrek 3 toys rotted on shelves forever. You could probably still find them at Toys R Us's tucked away somewhere in the boonies. But, okay, we're moving on to the next one, because we already destroyed Shrek, right? But the next one, okay, I saw the trailer for Shark Tale. There was no doubt what this movie was. Again with the stunt casting. This is the first time Robert De Niro is doing a cartoon. Robert De Niro, Jack Black, Angelina Jolie, and our number one fish in the movie, our Shark Slayer, which the film was supposed to be originally called Shark Slayer, Will Smith himself. Will Smith dipping his toe in the animated movie business. 2 weeks of work and years of you being lauded as a big star. Okay, there's no denying that Will Smith is an amazing box office draw. He's only had a few minor flops in his career. What's that movie? Is it 7 Pounds, where he gets in the bathtub with an octopus or a squid to kill himself and give his organs? Like, again, it's one of those movies that it's baffling that it stars Will Smith and nobody's even heard of it. But yet, that's a real movie I described. That's a real movie, kids. He gets in the bathtub with a squid and kills himself, and the squid's electrical charge keeps him alive. I didn't write this. If I wrote this, nobody would read it. It had to get made for it to exist, right? But yeah, this was one of those movies that I got really angry over because my kids wanted to go see it. And I took the family, me, Rachel, Austin, and Luke, to go see Shark Tale. And it was a $50 event. Tickets, popcorn, Coke, and I just looked at the kids and I said, one day you're going to say you're sorry for dragging me to this crap fest. And you know what? They actually did. Not that long ago, we love to talk about Shark Tale because Shark Tale is so colossally bad. It's, you know what it is? Shark Tale is kind of like, you're going to laugh at this. It's the animated Miller's Crossing. You ever seen Miller's Crossing? It's the Coen brothers movie where Gabriel Byrne is a hitman sent to kill John Turturro, and he doesn't do it. Turturro begs for his life, and he spares him, but he tells everybody he killed him, so when Turturro shows up again, he's manipulating him because everybody thinks he's dead. Shark Tale is Will Smith is going to save the school of fish by killing the shark, Jack Black, and Jack Black's like, look, we'll just tell everybody you killed me, and you'll be a hero, and I'll get to live, or whatever it is. And they have, like, Italian stereotype mafia. Like, it's a movie about stereotypes. The Italian fish mafia, they're like, we're going to go, and we're going to get all the fish. And then there's the hip black fish, they're jive talking, and oh, it's so weird. Oh, my God. What a stupid, stupid movie. It ends with all the fish washing a whale and singing Christina Aguilera's cover of Car Wash. Like, that alone should say to you, I can't believe people worked on this. But you know what? Shark Tale came out a few months after Finding Nemo. Of course it did. Because computer animation was taking different leaps forward in fur and iridescence and shiny surfaces, and fish was the next logical jump up from shiny plastic toys. That would be Katzenberg's explanation as to why. And the real reason to be like, look, we knew Disney and Pixar were making a fish movie. We're making a fish movie. They're making a fish movie starring Albert Brooks that's very gentle. We're making a hip, edgy movie with celebrity voices. You know what? I will find a picture on Google. There's a picture from the Cannes Film Festival of Will Smith, Angelina Jolie, and Jack Black riding a blow-up inner tube vehicle to promote Shark Tale. It's the most uncomfortable publicity shot you've ever seen because nobody wants to be there, and it's hilarious. Now, I don't begrudge anybody for getting a job and getting paid to do this kind of crap fest movie, but I resent thrusting it upon the public and making kids want to see it because then I get stuck going to see this crap. Funny story about Shark Tale. Shark Tale had a few small toys out, mostly PVC characters. You know, PVCs are like Smurfs, little plastic, non-posable figures. I found a Shark Tale carrying case at the swap meet, and I bought it because it looked weird. It looked like something you'd get at like SeaWorld or something. It didn't look like a toy from a toy store, and there's no really way to explain that except that I've collected toys for so long that I just have a sixth sense about this is different. So I bought it, and it was by a pretty small toy company. I'll have to look up the name. It's on the toy. I still have it. And it was weird because I did a lot of internet searches to try to find the story behind this toy and where it came from and, you know, if it was worth any money. And you know what? In one of the few rare instances, I came up completely blank. There was no information anywhere. It's as if I had the only one on the planet. There were no records of it being sold on eBay or WorthPoint or any Google searches to even find a picture of it. Not even a picture of it like at a toy fair. Because, you know, toy fair is where every February, the toy companies show off what they're coming out for the year, and all the retailers place their big orders. And a lot of times, toys that are shown at Toy Fair either come to the market in a different manner than what you saw. They're refined or painted or sculpted better, or they don't come out at all. In the case of the legendary Skeleton Warriors Bone Dragon that only exists at Gary Goddard's company lobby. But I think that's coming out in a limited edition at some point, which I saw one at Comic-Con and I was like, wow, I got to have it. Anyways, I digress. I love talking toys. I should just do 2 hours of toys, right? But I tried to figure out where this Shark Tale case came from. It was in the shape of the Jack Black shark, and it opens up into an underwater thing where you put your figures on it. So Austin and I sat down one day, and I called the company that made it. They're out in Florida. It took 3 or 4 operators and please hold. And I'd explain what it was. And finally, I got this guy on the phone. I explained what it was. And he said, I'm not going to be able to help you out on that, sir. And I said, oh. I said, well, can you just confirm like that it was released as a toy? You know? And he goes, I'm not going to be able to confirm for you, sir. I said, well, I'm really flummoxed, sir, because it's got your company's name on it. So obviously it came out of your company, and I'm just trying to figure out, is it a salesman sample? Is it a Toy Fair sample? Is it a premium from somewhere? And he was just like a robot. I'm not going to be able to help you out with that, sir. I'm not going to be able to help you out with that, sir. And I felt like I'd called the government to report like a piece of the space shuttle had fallen in my backyard. It was very strange. Needless to say, I still have it. It's one of the few toys I've never done anything with. It's out in the garage. I will put a picture up on the Facebook page because maybe you know what it is. But no, that was really bizarre. And it's the only interesting thing to come out of Shark Tale was that bizarre toy that no one wants to have ownership of, or where it came from, or what the deal is with it. So anyways, boy, I'm nearing the hour mark already. I've only gotten to 9 movies, and they have 30 in their lexicon. So we may have to make this a 2-part episode. If you told me I was going to do 2 episodes on DreamWorks, I would have said you're crazy. But here we are. The next film in their catalog is Madagascar, 2005. On a budget of $75 million, this film made $532 million. That's massive, massive hit. And I think anybody who works in the animation business would look at a budget of $75 million for a movie like that and dream of making a movie that cheap now. There's simply no way to make them that cheap. Well, you can. They end up looking like that. What's that one? Go look on YouTube for that movie about the battle in the grocery store between all the brands. I'll post a link to it. My kids are always talking about it because it's really rank looking. Isn't one of the main voices Charlie Sheen? What? Anyways, we're going to end on Madagascar. Because, again, Madagascar is one of those strange movies. Like, I just don't get its appeal. I don't know why kids like this. Kids. I don't know why adults like it. You know, it's Ben Stiller and Chris Rock and penguins. And it's about this animals that are raised in a zoo getting shipped back to Madagascar and having to live in the wild. And it's weird, too. Like, Disney released a similar movie at the same exact time called The Wild. The same exact plot. Disney didn't make that movie. They just distributed it. And I think that took a lot of heat off of them. Because at that point, it would have looked like now Disney is copying DreamWorks. We flipped the script. Because Disney Animation, not Pixar, but Disney Animation was faltering. They hadn't had a hit in years. The Katzenberg shine was off. And I don't know what movies Katzenberg had put in the pipeline before he left, but the movies after he left slowly started to dwindle in box office. You know, Pocahontas, Mulan. Mulan's a great movie. Tarzan did really well, right? Tarzan. But then they moved into Treasure Planet, Home on the Range. These are not beloved movies. Race to Atlantis. You know, I like Race to Atlantis because it's got Michael J. Fox as the lead guy, but it's not a very good movie. It's a bizarre movie. We'll get to that at some point. We'll talk about Disney Animation. We're talking about DreamWorks. But we're at a point where I got to wrap this up. We're at over an hour. But we will continue in our next episode with more of the DreamWorks catalog because we haven't even gotten to the movies that I truly despise and have venom and anger for, even more than Shrek, only because their messages, like Shrek, are so off base. Like, they don't make any sense. And did you know that one of the upcoming movies of the DreamWorks catalog that I'm going to talk about actually ends in Armageddon? How is that a kid's movie? I have no idea. But we'll talk about that on the next episode. We're also going to have, either tonight or tomorrow, a bonus Homestuck episode because the numbers for them are through the roof. And I love talking with my kids about what inspires them and learning about what they're into. I think that's fascinating to me, and I couldn't be happier that they like doing it. I love listening and talking about it, and that we have people around the world listening to what we have to say. So, hey, thanks for listening. It's a very strange episode. It's not anything that I was going to talk about when I sat down, but I was just so riled up about that conversation at work about one of the upcoming movies that really I just don't care for, and people love it. I don't get it, but we'll get to that. My name is Jeff Tucker. I am the voice that you're listening to. We want to thank you for listening to 91 Reasons. This is probably the point where you turn off the podcast because you don't want to hear me ramble at the end. Thanks for supporting us. The best way to support us is please go to iTunes and leave us a review. Leave us 5 stars if you think we deserve it. And tell us what you think of the show because that's the only way to rise in the iTunes ratings board. I'm just a tiny, tiny, tiny show. So every little bit helps. You can support us on Patreon. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @the6thkey, all spelled out. I am the author of 3 books. They're available on Amazon.com in either paperback or Kindle download. The 6th Key, its sequel, The Lost Station, and its sequel, The Infinite Backward. I'm hard at work on book 4 right now, The Ice Temple. It'll be out sometime next year. Thank you for all your support. I'm going to go eat lunch because I'm starving, and you're listening to the very hungry episode of 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening? You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
All right, here we return. It is almost Christmas here, and here I am talking about Dreamworks movies in part 2 of the exhaustive look at all the Dreamworks animated films. We talked last episode about the formation of Dreamworks and how it came to be after Katzenberg left Walt Disney Animation. He left on not so good terms, and I think that when we talked last time, it was pretty clear that the slate of movies that DreamWorks decided to put out were designed to siphon away eyeballs from Disney and Pixar movies, and also a little bit probably of Katzenberg trying to show up, like, hey, I can do what you can do. In fact, I did do what you do now, and I did it better, and I'm going to do it better over here. So as DreamWorks Animation continued, they along with Disney and Pixar and Blue Sky to some degree, they really turned animation into a much more common thing than it used to be. When I was a kid, animated movies didn't come out every year. How it normally worked was you'd get an original animated movie, usually Disney. Sometimes there were other ones. You know, there were notable exceptions like Amblin putting out An American Tail, which felt just like a Disney movie because it was Don Bluth, or Secret of Nim from MGM, or Amblin also did Land Before Time, which became a phenomenon of really perfecting the direct-to-video sequel. I think they're up to like Land Before Time 30. But animated movies were not every year. Sometimes you got a reissue. Like there were a lot of years where Disney, before home video really took off, Disney was very hesitant to put out movies for home use because they knew once it hit home video, they weren't going to get any more theatrical money out of these films. So they were really hesitant to put them out. And that's where the Disney Vault came from, as far as putting a movie out for a short window and then pulling it back on, putting it on moratorium and trying to drive sales for a short period. And I'm sure that worked for them, but all it really did was create a very healthy secondary market for people who were willing to either bootleg them or buy them and put them in a closet and then sell them. But those were events. I mean, look at Jungle Book, was released in the 60s, didn't come out on video till 90, 91, you know. Like, the home video explosion was 85, 86. And you wouldn't get some of these Disney classics like Snow White, Fantasia, for years after that. Disney held on to those things for years. And that was because they were re-releasing them to theaters, because that's what the model was. The model was people went to the theaters to see movies, and that's where all the money was. Home video changed all that, and as soon as home video really took hold and Disney figured out how to do that, they were the kings of that as well. And then, you know, branding themselves Disney DVD and then Disney Blu-ray with platinum and diamond editions. And the model has now become, instead of re-releasing it to theaters, you just re-release it on disc with new bonus features and blah, blah, blah. Oh, all except for Song of the South, right? You ever heard of Song of the South? That's the 1940s Disney movie that has Brer Rabbit and Brer Bear. Splash Mountain is based on it, and Zippity Doo-Dah, arguably one of the most famous Disney songs of all time, comes from it, but you can't get it on home video. It was only released one time in America, either late 84, early 85. I worked at Multivideo. They had one copy, and it was always checked out. And once it died, there wasn't no replacement, because Disney figured out pretty quick that the attitude around Song of the South had changed drastically, and that some things weren't just they weren't palatable anymore. And the main beef with Song of the South is that Uncle Remus, who narrates the story, is actually happy being a slave, and that's why it's deemed offensive, because it's a product of its time, and it's not going to work. And I know that just a couple of years ago, Bob Iger, when he took over for Eisner, one of his first things was, how do we get this movie into the market? How do we make money off of it? because audiences certainly want it, but we can't put it out without risking offending a lot of people. So the rumor I heard was that they had gotten Denzel Washington to record a new intro, putting the film in its historical context. And even that, at the last minute, they were like, you know what? It's just too volatile. So, no, it's not coming out. So I don't think we'll ever see Song of the South, you know? It's just one of those bizarre movies that can't seem to find a way to be released without some people losing their minds over. Because, you know, when they released Fantasia on video finally, they edited quite a few little short snippets out during the centaur scene. There's a pretty racist stereotype centaur that's doing the centaur's hooves or something. It's really racist. And they also cut out a couple of shots of the nymphs topless. So, hey, Disney was really pushing the envelope back in the day, both stereotype-wise and sexual-wise for Fantasia. Because, you know, Fantasia was supposed to be this movie that got re-released every couple of years with some scenes taken out and some new scenes put in. And it was supposed to be this project that was never finished. But, you know, when Fantasia came out, people just didn't get it. They wanted a linear story, not abstract imagery put to music. And it would take a long time before Fantasia really became the classic that it's known as today. You know, along those lines, I don't know a lot of kids that'll even sit through Fantasia. You know, I would sit through it because I remember going to the theater for one of those re-releases. So I have fond memories of that. But the movie itself, to me, yeah, it is art. But it's more like background art. Like you put the Blu-ray on and then you're doing Christmas crafts or something. I don't know. You know, there's no doubt that there's a reason the Sorcerer's Apprentice with Mickey Mouse is always the one that you see, because that's the most recognizable icon in the film. Even though to me, as a kid, Night on Bald Mountain was the best because it was dark and scary and not at all what you got from a lot of Disney cartoons. But, you know, home video did kill the re-release. We've seen a resurgence in the last few years of movies getting re-released simply because with digital delivery, you don't have to make a print. And that's where all the money would come from. Back, you know, not that long ago, just a few years ago, like if Rachel and I saw a reissue of Clerks, and that meant there had to be a print struck or a print found, driven to the theater, loaded in the projector, and here we go. Digital, you're just downloading it from the studio. So that's why we've seen a resurgence of a lot of older movies getting re-released. And I'm all for it. If it means that I get to see a movie that I really enjoy back on the big screen, Back to the Future, Raiders of the Lost Ark, I'm all about it. I think that's a great idea. And that was the final come to fruition promise of the 20-screen megaplexes back when they started building them. Well, it's so that we can show first-run movies and art house movies and reissue movies. Well, they didn't do it, but finally it's happening. You know, they're event tickets, and what a great idea. But when Dreamworks was founded, we're back to Dreamworks, they were going to put out a steady supply of animated product. So a lot of these films were put into production quite early because animated movies take years. They're very time consuming, painstaking, you know, talk about moving at a snail's pace. But that's animation, and you have to have a passion for it. And there's no doubt that Jeffrey Katzenberg has huge passion for animated movies. You know, he's responsible for some of the finest. Him and John Lasseter are responsible for some of the finest animated movies of the last 25 years, longer, 27, 28. So there's no doubt he's very into it. So when he founded DreamWorks, they imagine how many meetings this guy must have attended to get all of these movies set up and going with voice casting and animation and rendering and production design and character design so that they could put out product year after year after year. I mean, it takes forever. Even if you are doing a sequel, even if you're doing a sequel and you're like, well, they've got the character models right in the computer. Well, that doesn't always work. Look at Toy Story 1, 2, and 3. For each one, the first one is a masterpiece. Second one, even more so. But they had to upgrade the character models to match the changing technologies. And you know what? Have a marathon. Put 1, 2, and 3 on. You'll be shocked at how different Buzz and Woody look from the 3 films, simply due to technology. You know, it's like trying to watch first season Simpsons. You know, the first season of Simpsons, the animation is so archaic as to be comical, as to be hard to watch, you know, especially on a high-def television. So they were working pretty hard at DreamWorks to get their movies out. And I know that they found their audiences because the box office grosses are undeniable, that people wanted to see these movies, that people saw these movies again and again and again and bought them on every conceivable form of home video. They're not for me. It's hard to find DreamWorks product that I enjoy. The Aardman ones seem to be the exception. The homegrown DreamWorks films, maybe they're just appealing to a younger audience or a hipper audience. I'm willing to admit I'm not a hip guy, and I don't get all the reason why we have all these modern day pop culture references in these movies, because once the film leaves theaters, it's completely dated. The music is so dated. The references are dated, you know? It'd be like watching Fox and the Hound or Great Mouse Detective and having him do a Where's the Beef reference. You know, like it would just be odd. But that's what we're looking at with these DreamWorks movies, because they have such dated pop culture references. And somebody did, you know what? I know I keep saying this and I forget once the episode is over, but somebody once did a study of the DreamWorks animated character pose and put them all together in a row. I'll see if I can find that, because it's fascinating how each of the characters is marketed the exact same. Like, it's such a cookie cutter assemblage of marketing materials, which is you know, it's just funny. But I guess, again, if the formula is working, who would change it? Who's to deny that? You know, if people like drinking Coke, why are you going to make new Coke? You know, that's just crazy. Just crazy. So we left off last episode. We had just talked about the first Madagascar film, which, again, I'm not a fan of. I don't particularly care for Ben Stiller. I don't particularly care for Chris Rock. I like Sacha Baron Cohen, but I can't watch the movie. Like a bunch of smart alecky characters saying smart alecky things to each other. I can't do it, you know. It's the equivalent of the Simpsons episode where Homer goes to the movies and he sees the Julia Roberts film Too Many Grooms, where the minister goes, 1 groom, 2 grooms, but you, oh, my medication. And then this kid with a skateboard pops up and goes, radical. Like, to me, that's a DreamWorks movie. Like, it's just, I'm not hip enough to get these movies. And I'm hip enough to know that I'm not hip enough. So I'm hip, lacking self-aware. There's some sort of acronym I'll have to come up with for what I am, but I truly am. And okay, so 2005 was Madagascar. That's their early release, and then late 2005 they had Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I'll be honest, I've never seen this film. I have no idea what it's about, other than they have to fight in some rabbit that's turning into a werewolf or something. I don't know. I'm sure if I watched it, I would probably really enjoy it, because the Aardman claymation features, the hands-on stop-motion features, have just a real high-quality look to them. I mean, those guys really know what they're doing. You know, they're as good as Henry Selick as far as stop-motion goes. And did you know that during the making of one of the Wallace and Gromit movies, that the guy who's in charge of them, the creator, he was in New York to do some talk show, and he left Wallace and Gromit in a taxi cab. I don't think he ever found it. I think the cab guy drove off and was like, you know, what's going on? These guys left a box of a guy and his dog at a clay, and who knows? Maybe he gave him to his kid. Could you imagine? Like, could you imagine getting the actual Wallace and Gromit clay figures with armatures in them? And I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what that would be like. I would give it back. I would be so terrified I'd call the studio and give it back and hope for some sort of, tiny reward or something. I don't know. But their next film, 2006, gosh, it doesn't seem like it's been that long. 2006, we're coming up on 9 years since Flushed Away. Flushed Away, man. Oh, not Flushed Away. I'm sorry. I take that back. Over the Hedge. Over the Hedge. Now, Over the Hedge was based off of there was some source material. I think it was a comic strip or a comic book, and it was about animals living in the forest next to a house, and they go in and find, and again, it's one of those movies where all they did was hire a bunch of well-known celebrities, in this case, Bruce Willis and Paul Giamatti, who I'm a huge fan, uber fan of Paul Giamatti. But I remember watching it, and he plays, Bruce Willis plays Rocky the Raccoon or something, and he likes all the food in the People House, and the exterminators trying to get rid of him, and it was just really a really by the numbers talking animal movie. How many talking animal movies do we have to have? Like, everything's a talking animal. And I know it's because we're still working on how to do a realistic human being animated character. Although I have no problem with the masterpiece that is The Incredibles. The Incredibles, after about, I'm going to guess 5 or 6 minutes in, you just accept that they're real people. And I think that's the combination of very high quality animation and even higher quality voice work by Craig T. Nelson and what's her name from the piano? I can't think of her name, but I really like her, and I think everybody in The Incredibles is just completely amazing. Holly Hunter is her name. I want to say Helen Hunter. I'm like, no, it's Helen Hunt. Holly Hunter, fantastic. But anytime they try, like those human creatures human people are stylized. If you're talking about Polar Express or Final Fantasy, like, no, they look like robots. They look like dead corpses being forced to move around by forces unseen. And the uncanny valley, which is a scientific term for when your brain, you're trying to believe that these people are real, but your brain knows something is off. You're in the uncanny valley because nothing quite looks right. The eyes don't quite look right. It doesn't quite match up. And that's certainly Final Fantasy and Polar Express, But, yeah, what a bummer. Over the Hedge, just more talking animals. Animals that are smarter than us and are hip. And, just imagine the raccoon going, radical! Like, I'm done, okay? And then the next film of that year, late 2006... This one didn't do very well. This one had a budget of $149 million and only made Like, isn't that funny? You can say only when you're talking about $178 million. You're still saying, well, only $178 million. Flushed Away. Now, sorry about that. I was choking for a second there. I'm choking on these terrible animated movies. They're actually going to physically kill me. They're so bad. But Flushed Away is an Aardman production with Ian McKellen and I think Kate Winslet and Hugh Jackman in the title role. And it's one of those weird kind of Pixar-esque movies where it presents you with an alternate reality. This time it's some sort of rat or mouse character, and they have a complete society based on puns and clever ways of using things. And this would rank higher on my list, except this is Aardman doing computer animation. And it just, to me, it doesn't look right. Like, I'm just not into it. I don't like the way the characters look. I think each of the main characters is grotesque looking, and they're just not. They don't have the Aardman charm that Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run had. They just don't. And I never really got into this. And they also lose valuable points because they had a very successful McDonald's promotion for Flushed Away. And I know that because whenever I go to the thrift store or the swap meet, even now, nearly 9 years later, you can still find Flushed Away toys in bags and piles. Like, every kid must have gotten these toys, and they've all been jettisoned. Nobody has any affinity for these characters, any affinity for these movies, and no, it's just not my thing. And I know I sound like a broken record. Like, I know you're listening going, Jeff, you hate all of these movies. Well, I do. I do hate all of these movies. But it's important that we talk about them in order so that when we get to the ones I really hate, we can amp up and be more excited and filled with more venom and hatred for some of these movies. Isn't that crazy? Like, why do I care? I don't know. Why do I care? I think it's because, now, if I was an adult without kids, I wouldn't care about these crap fests. But because I have kids and they're marketed at kids, a lot of times they work. Like my kids dragging me to Shark Tale, or my son Austin, who is mortified that when he was 3 years old, had to have Shrek horns on his head and would only answer if we called him Shrek. And this lasted for 5 or 6 long, tedious months. But, you know, I was caught up in the thick of these movies because of my kids, where it's marketed to them on movie trailers, commercials, Happy Meal toys, the toy aisle itself, and it's hard to escape them. So you end up having an opinion because they're just around you. You're just steeped in it, you know? Ugh. Flushed Away. And what a gross title. Like, I know it actually refers to the fact that he falls in a toilet and gets flushed away. But Flushed Away, maybe not the best title. You know, we all have to go to the toilet. And we don't need a movie that's named like, you know, the toilet movie. Or even the connotation that we're going to have to venture down the toilet bowl with them. Like, really, give me a break. And you know what? The box office reflects that. So I'm not in the minority here. I am in the minority when it comes to the next film in their artillery, and that's 2007's Shrek the Third, which should have been the last one. It should have. Isn't 3 movies enough to say about Shrek? Is it 3 movies and a couple of holiday specials, and I'm sure there was an ice show, and there was a Broadway musical? Haven't we said enough? Like, can't we just say by the third one, you know, Merry Christmas, everybody. We're going to do you the favor of never having this character appear again. But that's not to be. But Shrek the Third, look at this. Budget of $160 million, and it grossed almost $800 million at the box office. $800 million. Like, who went to see this movie? Oh, I know. Everybody. This is the one with Justin Timberlake as King Arthur. And, oh boy, Shrek the Third. What's to say about Shrek that I haven't said already, except that it's another way to make money off Mike Myers' Scottish voice, and another film to line the pockets of Cameron Diaz, and the continual downward spiral of Eddie Murphy into family movie gutter. And Shrek the Third. Isn't that great? Ugh. Okay, the next film, 2007, late 2007. So this is the second movie of that year. B-Movie. I took my kids to see B-Movie to the theater. See what I said about sometimes the The marketing works. The commercials that bombard you. And remember, this is all before DVRs were abundant. So you're still watching commercials. And B-Movie had so many commercials. They had a trailer with all the actors live action in B costumes, you know. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Matthew Broderick. You know, they're all in B costumes. And the big thing of the trailer was Jerry Seinfeld's character saying, you know, something wasn't working, so they were going to go to Plan B. Plan B. That's the signature line of the trailer, and guess what? It's not in the movie. Even my kids picked up on that. They're like, hey, that funny scene from the trailer is not in the movie. And that's different than if you're talking about how the Pixar movies have actual snippets for the trailers that are not in the movie. You know, Mr. Incredible putting on his costume and the belt buckle exploding around the room is not in the movie. It was made just for the trailer. They do that a lot. Dreamworks, not so much. So seeing that in the trailer but not in the movie was kind of like, oh, okay, all right. But this was the big Jerry Seinfeld animated, him and Renee Zellweger. And, you know, I know a lot of people who really like this movie. And I'll try to argue with them, and they'll go, you know, Jeff, you just don't know what it's like to suspend disbelief. And I go, okay, all right, you may have a thing about that, you know. Sometimes the ludicrousy of the plot, I can't figure out how to wrap my head around it. That you are right in this, but B movie's even bigger than that because it's not about. Okay, if you're talking about suspending your disbelief, then you have to accept that in the movie, bees have this whole culture, and when Jerry Seinfeld's bee starts talking to Renee Zellweger's human character, we're just supposed to accept the fact that in this planet, they go, well, the bees are sitting it. Okay, they talk. That's it. Nobody raises a ruckus, and the bees launch this rebellion that they're not going to make honey if they're not treated right. And it's like, okay, I don't know what to believe here. The whole thing's ludicrous. Is the bee romancing this woman? Like, what the hell's going on? So when you're talking suspension of disbelief, you're going to lose me right at the get-go. Because a woman can't have an affair with a bee. It's just stupid. It's stupid on every... They can be friends, I guess. But see, the major problem with B movies is not the suspension of disbelief. It's the ignorance and the ignoring of their own rules of the movie that they set up. And I've talked about this before. The main reason movies have a problem, when I start talking about movies that have issues, is simply because a lot of them set up the rules of the universe, and this is how we have to play by, and then they just break them because they can't think of any way to get the character out of whatever circumstance they're in, or they're trying to achieve an impossible goal. And here, okay, an example is at the end of The Matrix, Neo is a god. So in the sequel, there's really no way to have any villains that can face off against Neo. So instead Neo starts karate fighting him again and makes some throwaway line about upgrades. Really? That's it? Upgrades? That's all you got? Upgrades? So when you set up the rules of the universe and you just break them, like one day I will get to one of the worst movies of the last 20 years, the remake of The Stepford Wives. The remake of The Stepford Wives, where they forgot what movie they were even making. And it's so painfully obvious watching it that for the first half of the movie, they're replacing their wives with submissive robots. And then at the end of the movie, they're only upgrading them with robotic technology. And they just figure nobody cares. They just figure you're going to the movies, you got your popcorn and your Coke, and if maybe it doesn't make sense, then, screw you. And that's how they feel about it. And they do that in B movie because they set up a world where they tell you that if a bee stings somebody, he's going to die. So that at the end, when Matthew Broderick's B character stings somebody, we're supposed to have this touching death scene. And instead, they replace his stinger with a plastic sword like you serve olives on, and he lives happily ever after. Well, you can't have it both ways, guys. You have to pick what the movie's about, what the rules of the universe are, and you have to stick by them. You can't just go, no, we can't kill this guy. We need him. And maybe that's DreamWorks' problem all through it. Because we're getting to a couple of really big offenders of that. But, whatever. B movie. I probably never even seen it. Although my kids tell me that B movie is one of those weird Touchstone movies. And I don't mean Touchstone the studio. I mean Touchstone in its basic sense. In that on a lot of social media, Tumblr and some of the other media sites, that B movie gets quoted all the time. Like it's one of those so bad it's hip to like bizarre movies. And I can believe that, whatever. Anywho, B movie. I don't recommend watching any of these movies, other than a couple of the Aardman ones. You shouldn't subject yourself to these. On that note, I really thought that people would be somewhat upset at the trashing of these movies. But I haven't heard a single person upset with me. Most people are like, oh, yeah, these are terrible movies. Oh, yeah, you're dead on. I'm like, okay. So I'm not in the minority here. A lot of us adults don't like this crap and how it's sold to our kids and how it clogs up the toy aisle and the Happy Meal collections. And they're just products. They're not, and this is terrible because I know people work on these things for years. But they're not art. They're just made to make money. And I know ultimately everything's made to make money. But the best things that are made to make money are also made to make you feel and live and soar and cry. And I don't get that from any of these. I don't have any soft spot for any of this crap. I just watch it and go, well, this is just selling toys. This is just somebody explaining a Disney or a Pixar movie that's never seen one. And there are exceptions to that on both sides, obviously. Okay, next film, 2008, $150 million budget. $130 million budget. $631 million at the box office. Wow. Kung Fu Panda. Kung Fu Panda. Have you seen this movie? Everybody's seen this movie. And, this is the quintessential DreamWorks movie. Because just look, I'm going to click through here because it bears saying what the voice cast of this movie is. Listen to this. Jack Black as the title character, the Kung Fu Panda. Dustin Hoffman as his Yoda, master. Angelina Jolie, Ian McShane, Seth Rogen, Lucy Liu, David Cross, James Hong, and Jackie Chan. Like, that's enough to make 10 movies. And the reason they got all these people to do this movie is they probably had to work a day. Other than Dustin Hoffman and Jack Black, I bet these people worked 1 to 2 days each because their characters barely speak in the movie. And it's like, featuring the voices of, and you're like, oh, you're a joke. That'd be like the commercial for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves going, starring Sean Connery as Good King Richard. He's in the movie 3 minutes. It's a great 3 minutes and one of the best cameos of all time. But it shouldn't be on the poster. But that's Kung Fu Panda, man. They couldn't wait to tell, at the Cannes Film Festival that all these people were in this movie, and Jack Black's yucking it up again. And again, this is another movie, just like Shrek, that was in production over a decade because the original voice of Kung Fu Panda was, again, Chris Farley, who died in 1997. Boy, Farley had all these projects lined up when he died of his drug overdose. What an idiot. I know he idolized John Belushi, but give me a break, man. Live fast, die young. No, okay, there you go. Thanks a lot, dude. Thanks a lot. You subjected us to Mike Myers' Scottish voice, and in this one, Jack Black. Thank you. I am not a fan of Kung Fu. I'm not a fan of any of these movies. I know I sound like a broken record. Kung Fu Panda, man. We get it. He's a big fat guy who can do Kung Fu because anybody can do it if you put your mind to it. Marty, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. Yeah, we know. What a great message. That's fabulous. But it's just not for me. God, is it not for me? And he's like, I can't do Kung Fu eating moon dew or whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Jack Black. Jack Black's brilliant when he's the character actor, the sidekick. Or he was good in Be Kind, Rewind, Cable Guy, Mars Attacks. But when he's a lead, he's not my thing. He's just not my thing, So the next film, November 2008, $150 million budget, 600 million worldwide gross. We're talking about Madagascar, Escape to the number 2, Africa. Guess what? I haven't seen this movie. I have no desire to see this movie. I could care less if I never see this movie. It's not my thing. It's not me, man. I can't watch this crap. Talking lions and wise-cracking zebras. Hey, I'm Chris Rock, wise-cracking, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Paycheck. All I hear when they talk is a cash register ringing. That's all I hear. Who cares? All right, the next one. $175 million budget, $381 million gross. I would have thought the gross of Monsters vs. Aliens would have been higher if for the only reason that this was the first big 3D movie that I took my family to. This is before Avatar. This was like the new generation of 3D, and it's something to see on the big screen. And I think we ended up paying like $50 or $60 for this for a matinee, and I was shocked at how much it costs. But it was a new way to see a movie. I was willing to pay it. And I wanted to see it because this is the only way to get me in a theater for a Reese Witherspoon, Seth Rogen movie. Like, oh no. This is terrible. That said, Monsters vs. Alien is not a terrible movie. Boy, I'm dropping. I'm actually being a nice guy here. It's not a terrible movie. It has a B movie, 50s B movie sci-fi aesthetic that I like. Kiefer Sutherland, Stephen Colbert, and I talked in the last episode about maybe the most out-of-place ending for a movie ever. And that's Monsters vs. Aliens, because once they've dealt with the plot of what's his name, Rainn Wilson's alien, annihilation of Earth, and once they save the planet, they switch back to the president and his cronies in what is obviously an homage to Dr. Strangelove, which no kid in the audience got. But that's, there are things you have to put in to keep the adults interested, and that's one of them. But at the end of this film, you're not going to believe it when I tell you if you've not seen this thing. At the end of the film, the president inadvertently launches all the nuclear missiles on Earth, the American arsenal. He starts Armageddon. And his way of dealing with it is he kind of looks around at all his advisors and is like, well, who gets to freeze my head? Like, they're putting him in cryogenic freeze. And when the Earth manages to bounce back from nuclear holocaust and they can thaw him out and revive him, that's his place in American history. And I remember thinking, like, why is that in this movie? Why is that the stinger at the end of this movie? The stinger is really blowing everybody and undoing the whole plot of the movie. They saved Earth from aliens so that it could be destroyed by the idiot president of the United States. And I don't know if that was some sort of slam against outgoing President Bush. Who knows? It's Colbert, because anything's possible. Maybe he riffed on it in the studio and they just put it in as a joke. But for a guy like me who takes films as they are and says that this is the movie the filmmaker intended and this is what got released, it begs the question, what were they thinking? What were they thinking? Because I don't know. Bizarre movie. The 3D was good. There were shots of the Reese Witherspoon character who's like a giant woman and Kiefer Sutherland's character who's on a little jetpack talking to her that really looked like, wow, this is a new way of 3D. Yes, the image is a little dark because the glasses are polarized and tinted, but it looks okay. It has depth. It has real depth on the screen. And Monsters vs. Alien is notable for doing nothing if just getting me in the theater to see Avatar, a few months later. Like, well, if it's in that kind of 3D, I gotta go because it's going to be great, right? And yes, the animation in Avatar is amazing if the plot is a little reminiscent of Dances with Wolves. Anywho, their next film is going to... This is the one, folks. This is the beloved film that's going to either have you nodding your head in agreement, nodding your head like, Jeff makes good points, or staring at whatever you're playing this on and saying, that guy's a complete idiot. He's ruining a great movie. And I'm sorry, but these Dreamworks movies do nothing for me. And I don't get the... God, if you look at the... Let's look it over. We're talking about How to Train Your Dragon. $165 million budget, a return of $494 million worldwide. Not bad. A 98% Rotten Tomatoes freshness. 98%. That means I'm the only guy that didn't like this movie. It's a club of one. There's somebody else out there, but he's probably got severe emotional issues. And I wouldn't want to hang out with him. Or he wouldn't want to hang out with me. But I didn't get this movie. This movie had so many problems that I just didn't get it. And I know this puts me in the minority. I get it. I wish I could enjoy this movie like everybody else, because the character design of Toothless is really good. The aesthetic of the film, the Viking landscape, the misty mountains and soaring vistas, it's all very well done. These guys did a really good job, but it's the script and some of the choices that they make in it that cause me to say, what? Okay, first one, glaring. This is so glaring. They present you with a whole host of damaged Viking elders. This is what's the guy's name? Hiccup. Hiccup's father, played by Gerard Butler. He's like, I tell you what, Hiccup, it's so great you're growing up and that you're gonna take over as chief of this tribe. And they got Billy, what's his name? Yucca. That's right. Hiccup's going to take over the whole place, and he's making armor for everybody. I got all the armor for people. I'm the armorer, yeah. And everybody's got really thick, we're going to outdo Mike Myers' Scottish accent. He's got a Scottish one. We've got a better Scottish one because we're really Scots, or whatever we are. And then all the kids are like, well, I don't know, Dad. I'm not sure I want to take over the tribe. Jay Brishel's like, his voice is one notch below pimply-faced teen from Simpsons, Mr. Simpson. And then Jay Brishel's like, oh, I don't know, Dad. And he's like, well, you got to do what you got to do, son. Find your own way, but you're taking over the tribe. I don't know, Dad, if I want to do that and fight the dragons. Okay, we got it. What happens during puberty in this land? How do they go from Americanized teenage voices to thick Scottish brogues in just a couple of years. Like, there's no mention of this? And I get that, okay, just go ahead and say it, Jeff. Say it to the radio. Jeff, it's a kid's movie. Well, that's great. But it doesn't mean it has to make huge gaps in logic. Either they all talk the same way or they don't. But you got people that talk this way and they talk sassy and hip, or Scottish, or whatever. But they should all talk the same. They all live in the same area. Give me a break. They took Kevin Costner to task for his awful English accent in Prince of Thieves, but at least in most scenes he was doing one. It wasn't like he's like, well, I'm Kevin Costner, this is the way I talk, and I'm Robin Hood. At least he tried a little bit. Just a little. Oh my God. But beyond that, the issue I have with How to Train Your Dragon is this. It's a movie about not judging things by its cover and not doing things just because that's always the way we've done things. These are both great messages. These are both life lessons that kids need to learn, that things are not always what they seem. So Toothless falls out of the sky, and Hiccup has to bring him back. And along the way, he learns that not all dragons are bad, and he has to convince his father that they don't have to fight the dragons, that they can work with the dragons. So it's a really expensive and well done, animated-wise, anti-war movie. And there's nothing wrong with that. Except the movie ends with a dragon battle that rivals the X-Wing attack on the Death Star. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't spend 90 minutes telling me how bad war is and how you need to have a diplomatic solution and just talk things over, and maybe you'll find that you're not so different after all, and then, by the way, we're going to kill everything in this mountain, and the giant dragon that awakens, we're going to fight it and destroy it with a thermal blast to the exhaust port. I mean, what's the message? It doesn't get to be both ways. You can't have a violent anti-war movie. Yeah, we're fighting for peace. We're fighting for peace. That's basically the message of How to Train Your Dragon. We're fighting for peace. What? We're eating on our hunger strike. I don't understand what you're doing. Yeah, I don't either. Maybe we didn't think this through enough. Anywho, let's burn through these, shall we? Next was 2010's. Look at that. They got How to Train Your Dragon in March, and then Shrek Ever After in May. And Shrek Ever After, Shrek number 4, grosses $752 million. So listen, folks. This green ogre thing is not going to go away if you continue to support him. You know that stray cat that won't leave your house because you keep feeding it? That's Shrek. That's Shrek. If we keep feeding this ogre, he's going to keep coming around. Katzenberg has said they're not done with Shrek. So I'm appealing to you, the listener. Do not go see any Shrek movie. If it comes out, don't go see it. We got Shrek out of Universal Studios. Now it's Despicable Me Minions or whatever. But okay, one down. We don't need any more Shrek in our lives. Don't go see the musical. Don't see his movies. Don't buy his products. And I guarantee he'll go away. A lot of these characters just fade away, and that's okay. It's okay to let it go. Listen, you in particular. I'm here for you. I'm going to hold your hand and keep you from your Shrek withdrawals. Oh, he's so cool. He knows pop culture and they play Smash Mouth. We can work through this together. We can do it. Like the werewolf needs to be chained in a room to avoid the full moon, we can do similar things to keep you from seeing and supporting and continuing the monster that is Shrek. All right. Like Smokey the Bear, friends don't let friends Shrek. Thank you. Okay. Next film in November, boy, 3 movies in 2010. They were really hoping, huh? Megamind. That's the Brad Pitt, Will Ferrell, Tina Fey superhero thing. And again, this is one of those movies, I remember the toys at Toys R Us, and they weren't very good. And the character designs were pretty silly and not attractive. They're just not attractive designs. And I watched this film. I fell asleep. It was so boring. By the time you realize that, spoiler alert, the hero's been playing dead because he was tired of the limelight, it's like, who cares? I don't care. You care? Nobody cares. And Will Ferrell, as game as he is for doing these things, and he showed up at Comic-Con dressed as Megamind for the panel. Like, that's commitment. That takes huge commitment. And God bless him. But it ain't my thing. And I'm a big fan of Tina Fey. But it's maybe one of those things where I need to look at her while she's talking in order to enjoy her performance. That's, I'll do my Chris Gore. That's kind of, I like it. I don't need to have Megan Fox read me an audiobook, if you know what I'm saying. All right, so next film, Kung Fu Panda 2, blah, blah, blah. This time it's personal. Like, look at these sequels all in a row. Kung Fu Panda 2, Puss in Boots, the spin-off of Shrek, and Madagascar 3, all in a row. Crud. And Madagascar 3 is the one that gave us that stupid scene of Chris Rock wearing the rainbow afro wig. Does this wig make my butt look big? Oh, please. Please stop. All of you involved, stop. Please stop making these movies. The next film is Rise of the Guardians. I have a funny story about Rise of the Guardians. I really wanted to like this movie because it had a different take on Santa Claus. It had Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Sandman, and Jack Frost all banding together. Like, that's a great concept. I really enjoy that concept. And the animation looked good, and the Sandman stuff looked beautiful. They got accused, rightfully so, but probably not their fault, of the Santa's elves in this movie copying the Minions from Despicable Me. You can see who won that battle as the Minions get their own movie next summer. And I don't think most people even remember Rise of the Guardians, except I've seen 100 girls dressed as Jack Frost at the various conventions I go to. Why that's the transgender, cross-gender cosplay choice, I don't know. I have no idea. So it's not my thing. But we were at WonderCon 2013, and the front desk gave us a free on-demand movie to watch. So that night in the hotel, we watched Rise of the Guardians. And I'll tell you, hey, DreamWorks, I want to thank you, because this put my kids right to sleep. Like, they don't even remember seeing this movie. They were so asleep. And I guess it's because the movie's just a little boring, It's just a little boring. And that's a bummer, too, because Alec Baldwin's take on Santa was decidedly different. But it never clicked, and it didn't do very well. And what are you going to do? The next film, The Croods, I never even saw this. I have no desire to see a Nicolas Cage animated caveman movie. Like, just say that to yourself. Hey, kids, do you want to go see a Nicolas Cage animated caveman movie? No, Dad, we don't. Hey, good choice, kids. And that's where the conversation ends. The next film, 2013's Turbo. Turbo is famous because it's the Ryan Reynolds voiced racing snail movie. And it's famous because the same weekend that it came out, Ryan Reynolds also had the movie R.I.P.D., which is the ripoff of Men in Black but with ghosts. And both movies tanked spectacularly at the box office. I don't think any actors had two movies that high profile tank at the box office so quickly. Now, Turbo did end up with $282 million worldwide, which is significantly higher than its budget of $127 million. But I can tell you, we're coming up on 2015, and Toys R Us still has Turbo toys on the shelf that nobody wants under any circumstances. And I'm sure Netflix is loving that they greenlit the Turbo animated series before they knew that no kid went to see this movie. Turbo, huh? Racing snail movie. Sounds delightful. Next is 2014. We're here with Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Why does this movie exist? This is one of those where they went shopping at the IP, the intellectual property flea market, and they're like, Peabody and Sherman's cheap. Let's do that. Will it look like the old movie and be as sarcastic and adult-oriented? Oh, no, it'll be a 3D movie for kids. Well, let's do it. And can we get Patrick Warburton? Because he's in all these movies. Oh, perfect. Are you kidding me? If Peabody and Sherman's not going to be the way it was when we were kids, where it was animated so it felt like a kid's show, but was really not a kid's show because of the deep historical lessons we were learning and the sarcastic way that Peabody ordered Sherman around. It was Mr. Peabody and his boy Sherman, like it was the anti-Snoopy. Where I don't know. I have no desire to ever see this movie. Okay, and the next one is How to Train Your Dragon 2. This was a theatrical trip for us, not because I wanted to, but because my wife got a job at a movie theater for 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, we could see any movie we wanted for free. So we got to see How to Train Your Dragon in 3D, $0. Thank you, Visa, $0. You know what? I fell asleep. I guess it was the combined efforts of a snooze fest of a movie and the idea that I had no money riding on it that I went asleep 2 or 3. I just nodded right off. This is so... It just wasn't my thing, And I guess I just have to realize that there are movie products that just simply don't appeal to me, like Twilight, stuff like that. And this is just one of those things that I just don't get. I don't know why it's popular. I had a full argument, and this is the argument that I talked about last episode that prompted doing these 2 episodes, where this guy Daniel at work was was angry at me that I didn't like these movies, these stupid How to Train Your Dragon movies. And on one hand, I do understand the childhood fantasy of kids and how having a pet dragon would be the greatest thing on earth. When I was a kid, it was Gremlins. We all wanted a Mogwai. So I guess kids today, that's not actiony enough for them. The animal has to be big enough to fly them around. And, I do applaud the brave choice of the first film of having Hiccup lose one of his limbs and having a robotic limb. I get that because then it matched what he had done to the dragon. I get all the symbolism. But it's some of the bigger messages that I don't understand, that I don't get. And How to Train Your Dragon 2 was simply, it has a 92% Rotten Tomatoes rating. So I am in the minority. But the other issue I have, and this is across the board on a lot of these movies, they're just too long. An animated movie at 90 minutes is about right. 86, 87 minutes is perfect. Some of these hit right up to 2 hours, and some of them go over, and it just seems like you're being assaulted. It's an assault on the senses. It's another unwatchable, fast-paced action sequence to get from A to B instead of just having the characters act and talk. Instead, we'll just have an action sequence. So, I get it. These movies are probably your thing. They're not mine. I'm sorry. We're gonna differ, but that's what makes life so rich, right? Is a variety of opinions, and maybe somebody will say something that will trigger in you, like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," or "No, that doesn't." And I always have an open mind. And if somebody had an argument that made these movies better, I would see them in a different light. But I'm set in my ways, and this is just how I feel about this particular roster of films. The current the current Dreamworks animation slate ends with movie 30. Movie 30, Penguins of Madagascar. I've not seen this movie, so I have no idea. I'm sure it's another silly minion type, smart alecky talking animal movie. It's just not for me. But if you go back to Ants 1998 and you get to Penguins of Madagascar 2014, that's 16 years. And 30 animated movies in 16 years is amazing, no matter how you slice it. Katzenberg has had teams of animators working virtually around the clock to get these movies into theaters. And on that I applaud him, because that's an amazing body of work. And they're not stopping. You know, if you look at their upcoming movies, something called Home, Kung Fu Panda 3, Trolls, Captain Underpants, the Mumbai musical, How to Train Your Dragon 3, The Croods 2, Madagascar 4, Puss in Boots 2. Like, that's a lot of movies in production. And you know that these animators are working in little tiny cubicles around the clock on their particular 3 seconds of footage so that we can have a movie. So whether you like them or not, I happen to not like them, you have to admire the perseverance of getting that many movies to the market. You know, 30 films in 16 years is more than Lucasfilm has done in 40. You know, give me a break. Anywho, we're going to wrap up this episode. We're going to do a Homestuck episode tonight or tomorrow, and that'll be up if you're into that kind of thing. We're amazed at the numbers that the Homestuck episodes have been getting, and my kids love talking about it, so I'm going to do them until they run out of things to say, which could be never. But anywho, this is 91 Reasons. My name is Jeff Tucker. Merry Christmas around the world to everyone listening, and any holiday that you celebrate, whatever it is. We hope that you have the greatest one ever. We thank you for taking time to listen to one guy just spew nonsense about movies and life. There are many, many episodes to come in 2015. We're not going to slow down at all. I have some funny ones coming up about the drunks that I lived with. Don Thornburg for the holidays. How about a Merry Christmas from your friend Thornburg? Merry Christmas. Can you imagine? I don't have to. I experienced Christmas with Don Berg. It was great. Highlights of my life. I'm still formulating a big episode about my father, which will be, I think, pretty interesting, because I just have so much information that you really shouldn't have about your parents, about the romance between my mother and father. It's really crazy. Interesting stuff. So if you'd like to support the show, the best way to do that is leave us a review on iTunes. We're up to 19 5-star reviews. We just got one from my good friend David Carrero. Thank you so much, David. He said that the episodes really helped him through a pretty tough time in his life. And my God, isn't that what we're here for? Aren't we here so that our experiences can be relayed to somebody else, and then they can have their own take on it, or they can live vicariously through you, or just experience a different way of thinking? That's what makes the world go round. So I'm so humbled by those kinds of words, because as I sit here at my desk, I don't know what your perception is of these episodes. I don't know what you think of me. My job is to just keep doing these, because I feel like I'm doing something worthwhile. Like people are listening and really getting into it or really enjoying it. And never in the history of mankind has there been an easier way to get your stories across than the right now that we're living in. You know, as the author of 3 self-published books and his own self-published podcast, you don't need anybody's permission to be creative. We're at a time where anybody can do anything they want creative-wise, as long as you've got the time to do it. And if you're creative, you make time. You know, you make time to do it, otherwise you'll go crazy. So that's our philosophy here. Thanks for listening. My books are available on Amazon.com. You can get them in paperback or as a Kindle download for only 99 cents. They are The Sixth Key,
The Lost Station, and The Infinite Backward. I'm hard at work on book 4, The Ice Temple, due sometime next year. Coming up, we're going to be at WonderCon Easter weekend in Anaheim, so look for the 6th Key table there if you want to talk 6th Key, or more importantly, if you're listening to this, you want to talk 91 Reasons, I'll be there with my 91 Reasons vest that my good friend Aldo made me that I couldn't be prouder to wear. So, again, have a safe and happy New Year. As someone who doesn't drink, I'll have a sober New Year like I do always. In fact, I have to be at work at 8 a.m. on New Year's Day, and they schedule me like that because I'm the only guy that doesn't drink. At least I think that's why they do it. Could be because everybody else is working the night shift before. But hey, isn't my excuse to sound more exciting? But thanks for listening. I am the voice you hear. I am Jeff Tucker, and the episodes are all part of something we like to call 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?